Part 2. Unbroken Awareness. Chapter 3. The Eternal Now. The God, the divine, or the reality of which we speak is not the God of any particular religion. Far beyond the divisions and concepts of human doctrine and belief, God has neither name nor religion. The God of which we speak is the universal power that dwells within all things, and from which all things proceed, the cosmic intelligence that spontaneously arranges everything, the one who gives rise to the ordered multiplicity we call creation. This power is neither a he, nor a she, nor an it. These are just the exigencies of language. This power is boundless, beyond space and time, beyond duality. It dwells in perfect oneness, perfect consciousness, perfect love, perfect peace, the supreme immanent reality within all things. It is the one being within which everything exists. It is the all in all. Nothing exists outside of it. And we are drops in that ocean, sparks of that fire, beings of light and love in that oceanic being of light and love. Neither words, nor images, nor concepts can reach it. It is to be experienced, not made the subject of theologies and philosophies, still less of argument and conflict. The divine spirit is universal and all-pervading. It transcends all material things, yet is present in every moment of consciousness. Infused with the divine immanence, every moment exists in an eternity to be found right here now. It is the eternity in which all time is simultaneously present, the divine eternity, the eternal now. Since this is an experience known to many human beings, it is no surprise that the eternal now and other expressions conveying a similar meaning have a lengthy history. In Plato's, circa 427 to 347 BCE, Parmenides, the protagonists discuss with Socrates how the one gives rise to the many. As a part of this discussion, they wonder how it is that something can pass from rest to motion and from motion to rest. Is there, asks Parmenides, such a point in time in which this change in state, and by extension all change, happens? Socrates replies that there is, and that it is called the moment, exaipnes. For the moment, exaipnes, seems to imply a something out of which change takes place into either of two states, for the change is not from the state of rest as such, nor from the state of motion as such, but there is this curious state, which we call the moment, lying between rest and motion, not being in any time, and into this and out of this what is in motion changes into rest, and what is at rest into motion. Plato, Parmenides. Socrates goes on to explain how an understanding of the moment makes it possible to comprehend how the one can be simultaneously transcendent and omnipresent. Using a similar expression, he describes how the now, or the present, is inseparable from the one. But the present is always inseparable from the one throughout its entire being, for whenever it is always now. Plato, Parmenides. In a similar vein, the 3rd century Greek-speaking mystic Plotinus, who lived in Roman Egypt, speaks of contemplation upon the eternal nature of the divine intelligence, nous, the hearth of reality, within which is a sleepless light, from which all things come into being. Do you not see, he asks, how everything arises from an eternal present? The early Christian theologian, St. Augustine, 354 to 430, Bishop of Hippo in North Africa, who was greatly influenced by the teachings of Plotinus, also maintains that God dwells in an eternal present, an eternity beyond time, an eternal moment within which all things exist. It is not with God as it is with us. He does not look ahead to the future, look directly at the present, look back to the past. He sees in some other manner, utterly remote from anything we experience or could imagine. He does not see things by turning his attention from one thing to another. He sees all without any kind of change. Things which happen under the condition of time are in the future, not yet in being, or in the present, already existing, or in the past, no longer in being. But God comprehends all these in a stable and eternal present. And with him there is no difference between seeing with the eyes and seeing with the mind, for he does not consist of mind and body. Nor is there any difference between his present, past, and future knowledge. His knowledge is not like ours, which has 3 tenses, present, past, and future. God's knowledge has no change or variation, nor does his attention pass from one thought to another. All things which he knows are present at the same time to his incorporeal vision. He knows events in time without any temporal acts of knowledge, just as he moves events in time without any temporal motions in himself. St. Augustine, City of God. Indicating the connection between time and one's inner being, St. Augustine also points out that if a man could only learn to hold his mind still, he would gain some understanding of eternity. For, as Socrates said, everything arises from the present moment. The only moment we ever know is the present, and if the mind that registers all the apparent change is held still, the present moment is experienced as eternity, not in time, but beyond time. In eternity, nothing moves into the past, all is present. Time, on the other hand, is never all present at once. The past is always driven on by the future always follows on the heels of the past, and both the past and the future have their beginning and their end in the eternal present. If only men's minds could be seized and held still, they would see how eternity, in which there is neither past nor future, determines both past and future time. St. Augustine, Confessions. Many centuries later, the German mystic Meister Eckhart, circa 1260 to 1327, expands on this insight. God, he says, is continually generating and sustaining his creation in the eternity of now, and he does so, says Eckhart, speaking metaphorically of course, by means of his Son, the Divine Word. God is ever at work in the eternal now, and his work is the begetting of his Son. He is bringing him forth all the time. In his birth, all things have proceeded forth, and so great is God's pleasure in this birth that he spends his whole energy upon it. God gives himself birth all at once in his Son. God speaks all things in his Son. Meister Eckhart, Sermons and Treatises, Sermon 79. And again, possibly referring to St. Augustine, I was reading recently in a book, who can fully understand it, that God is now making the world, just as on the first day, when he created the world. Meister Eckhart, Sermon 29. In the divine reality, All temporal nows are contained in that single and eternal now. Eckhart wrote, "The now in which God made the world is as close to this time as the now in which I am just speaking, and the last day is as close to this now as the day that was yesterday." Sermon 67. And the now in which God made the first man, and the now in which the last man shall cease to be, and the now I speak in, all are the same in God, and there is but one now. Sermon 8. Man thinks he lives in time, but were he to rise above it, he would realize that he dwells in the stillness of eternity, which encompasses all of time. Eckhart wrote, "Man knows in the now of time. The now of time is the least thing there is. But take away the now of time, and you are everywhere and have the whole of time." Sermon 49. To receive the eternal gift of God, a man must free himself from time and everything he has done in time. Eckhart wrote, "To be receptive to the highest truth, and to live therein, a man must needs be without before and after, untrammeled by all his acts or by any images he ever perceived, empty and free, receiving the divine gift in the eternal now, and bearing it back unhindered in the light of the same, with praise and thanksgiving." Sermon 6. Then the soul will receive everything that God is, in the eternity of now. Eckhart wrote, "The soul receives everything that he is. Whatever the soul desires is now ready. Whatever God gives has been eternally becoming. Its becoming is now new and fresh, and altogether in one eternal now." Sermon 32. While Eckhart expresses his feeling and understanding in a philosophical manner, the French Jesuit priest Jean-Pierre de Caussade, 1675 to 1751, relates the matter entirely to personal experience when he says that spiritual treasures are to be found in the present moment. "The present moment holds infinite riches beyond your wildest dreams." J.P. de Caussade, Abandonment to Divine Providence, 9. Echoing Plato and St. Augustine, Martin Buber, 1878 to 1965, Austrian-born philosopher, religious thinker, educationalist, and advocate of Hasidic Judaism, says that spiritual ecstasy is a timeless state where only the moment lives. In ecstasy, all that is past and that is future draws near to the present. Time shrinks. The line between the eternities disappears. Only the moment lives, and the moment is eternity. In its undivided light appears all that was and all that will be, simple and composed. It is there, as a heartbeat is there, and becomes manifest like it. Martin Buber, Hasidism and Modern Man. Personal experience is always more eloquent than theory. One of the most compelling Western writers of recent times to build his spiritual life around the sacred presence of the divine in the eternal now is the American Quaker Thomas Kelly, 1893 to 1941. For Kelly, the eternal now is a place in which to dwell, continually conscious of the presence of God. First, he points out that for many human beings the present moment is inundated by worries about the past and anxieties concerning the future. awareness of the present moment has been altogether lost. For many, the now has little significance. Time spreads itself out like a ribbon, stretching away from the now into the past, and forward from the now into the future, at the far end of which stands the New Jerusalem. In this ribbon of time we live, anxiously surveying the past in order to learn how to manage the most important part of the ribbon, the future. The now is merely an incidental dividing point, unstable, non-important, except as by its unstaying migration we move ahead into the richer meadows and the greener pastures of the future. This, I fear, is the all too familiar world of all too many religious men and women, when a deeper and a richer experience is possible. Thomas Kelly, Testament of Devotion. Yet the now is no mere transition between past and future, but a place of peace and joy, a state of consciousness where the divine presence is to be found, and where all that troubles the mind can be set aside. Kelly writes, in the immediate experience of the presence, the now is no mere nodal point between the past and the future. It is the seat and region of the divine presence itself. No longer is the ribbon spread out with equal vividness before one, for the past matters less, and the future matters less, for the now contains all that is needed for the absolute satisfaction of our deepest cravings. Why want and yearn and struggle when the now contains all one could ever wish for, and more? The present now is not something from which we hurriedly escape toward what is hoped will be a better future. Instead of anxiety, lest the future never yield all we have hoped, lest we fail to contribute our full stint before the shadows of the evening fall upon our lives, we only breathe a quiet prayer to the now and say, "Stay, thou art so sweet." Instead of anxiety, lest our past defects, our long-standing deficiencies blight our well-intentioned future efforts, all our past sense of weakness falls away, and we stand erect in this holy now, joyous, serene, assured, unafraid. Thomas Kelly, Testament of Devotion. Once glimpsed, awareness of this fundamental reality can be intensified, for it is a safe place to rest, a haven inhabited by the divine. It is from the now that the experience of time originates, for time is only the transience of life, observed by our inherently eternal nature. Kelly says, between the relinquished past and the untrodden future stands this holy now, whose bulk has swelled to cosmic size, for within the now is the dwelling place of God Himself. In the now we are at home at last. The fretful winds of time are stilled, the nostalgic longings of this heaven-born earth traveler come to rest. For the one-dimensional ribbon of time has loosed its hold. It has by no means disappeared. We live within time, within the one-dimensional ribbon. But every time now is found to be a continuance of an eternal now, and in the eternal, now receives a new evaluation. We have not merely rediscovered time, we have found, in this holy immediacy of the now, the root and source of time itself. For it is the eternal who is the mother of our holy now, nay, is our now, and time is, as Plato said, merely its moving image. To live truly in the now, Kelly repeats, is to live in serenity and joy. No other happiness can compare with it, for this now is where all transience and activity originates, and where the force of life itself is centered. He says, "An invariable element in the experience of now is that of unspeakable and exquisite joy, peace, serene release. A new song is put into our mouths. No old song ever has caught the glory and the gladness of this now. No former now can be drawn upon to give perfect voice to this now. The well springs of life are bubbling up anew each moment. For the holy now is not something which we, by our activity, by our dynamic energy, overtake or come upon. It is a now which itself is dynamic, which lays hold actively upon us, which breaks in actively upon us, and re-energizes us from within a new center. As the divine is revealed in every moment of our existence, the calculating ego automatically begins to fall away. No longer is it deemed essential to plan for every eventuality as if one were an entirely independent and isolated being. Buoyed up by close contact with the divine presence, understanding that the essence of existence and the flow of life, inner and outer, are in another's hands, true faith begins to flood the heart. He writes, "And then comes the sense of presence. The eternal now breaks through the time nows, and all is secure. A sense of absolute security and assurance of being linked with an overcoming power replaces the old anxieties. An immediate corollary to this is the weakening of the merely calculated, rationally planned decisions. When we lived in the one-dimensional time ribbon, we had to think life out all by ourselves. The past had to be read cautiously. The future had to be planned with care. But then comes the reality of the presence, and the now eternal is found to underlie and generate all time temporals, and a life of amazing, victorious faith living sets in. Thus in faith we go forward, with breathtaking boldness, and in faith we stand still, unshaken, with amazing confidence. For the time nows are rooted in the eternal now, which is a steadfast presence, an infinite ocean of light and love, which is flowing over the ocean of darkness and death." Thomas Kelly, Testament of Devotion. To dwell in the divine presence is to live in the eternity of the present moment. The two are a part of an all-encompassing experience of oneness. Like Kelly and others before and since, Richard Jefferies, 1848 to 1887, also describes an experiential understanding of the eternal now. Since many of his experiences were associated with a mystical perception of the English countryside around him, Jefferies, the son of a Wiltshire farmer, has sometimes been categorized as a nature mystic. His book, The Story of My Heart, is certainly an extended rhapsody on the presence of the divine in nature. In these extracts, awareness of the all-pervading presence of the divine in the material universe is fused with a sense of the immediacy of eternity, drawing together the themes that we have been exploring. Firstly, he speaks of knowing himself to be an integral part of and totally embraced by a higher reality. Accompanied by joy and ecstasy, he realizes that the feeling is within himself, yet he finds it to be enhanced when he is surrounded by the natural world. And significantly, this heightened perception does not arise in fleeting moments, but is a more continuous part of his awareness. I was not more than 18 when an inner and esoteric meaning began to come to me from all the visible universe, and indefinable aspirations filled me. I found them in the grassy fields, under the trees, on the hilltops, at sunrise, and in the night. There was a deeper meaning everywhere. The sun burned with it. The broad front of morning beamed with it. A deep feeling entered me while gazing at the sky in the azure noon and in the starlit evening. I was sensitive to all things, to the earth under, the star hollow round about, to the least blade of grass, to the largest oak. They seemed like exterior nerves and veins for the conveyance of feeling to me. Sometimes a very ecstasy of exquisite enjoyment of the entire visible universe filled me. I was aware that in reality the feeling and the thought were in me and not in the earth or sun, yet I was more conscious of it when in company with these. There was a secluded spring to which I sometimes went to drink the pure water, lifting it in the hollow of my hand. Drinking the lucid water, clear as light itself in solution, I absorbed the beauty and purity of it. I drank the thought of the element. I desired soul nature, pure and limpid. When I saw the sparkling dew on the grass, a rainbow broken into drops, it called up the same thought prayer. The stormy wind whose sudden twists laid the trees on the ground woke the same feeling. My heart shouted with it. The soft summer air, which entered when I opened my window in the morning, breathed the same sweet desire. Richard Jefferies, The Story of My Heart. This experience, he observes, is not dulled by the exercise of intellect, by his study of science and philosophy, for it is more real than they are. The sciences I studied never checked it for a moment, nor did the books of old philosophy. The sun was stronger than science, the hills more than philosophy. Referring to a 2,000-year-old tumulus or burial mound of some ancient warrior, Jefferies muses on the nature of time and immortality. Listening to the sighing of the grass, I felt immortality, as I felt the beauty of the summer morning, and I thought beyond immortality, of other conditions, more beautiful than existence, higher than immortality. Sweetly the summer air came up to the tumulus, the grass sighed softly, the butterflies went by, sometimes alighting on the green dome. 2,000 years! Summer after summer the blue butterflies had visited the mound, the thyme had flowered, the wind sighed in the grass. The azure morning had spread its arms over the low tomb, and full flowing noon burned on it. The purple of sunset rosied the sward. Stars, ruddy in the vapor of the southern horizon, beamed at midnight through the mystic summer night, which is dusky and yet full of light. White mists swept up and hid it. Dews rested on the turf. Tender harebells drooped. The wings of the finches fanned the air. Brown autumn dwelt in the woods beneath. The rime of winter whitened the beech clump on the ridge. Again the buds came on the wind-blown hawthorn bushes, and in the evening the broad constellation of Orion covered the east. 2,000 times! 2,000 times the woods grew green and ring-doves built their nests. Day and night for 2,000 years, light and shadow sweeping over the mound. Grappling with the mysterious nature of time, Jefferies feels eternity to be all around him and within himself, and immortality to be the nature of his innermost being. Realizing that spirit, recognizing my own inner consciousness, the psyche, so clearly, I cannot understand time. It is eternity now. I am in the midst of it. It is about me in the sunshine. I am in it, as the butterfly floats in the light-laden air. Nothing has to come. It is now. Now is eternity. Now is the immortal life. Here, this moment, by this tumulus, on earth, now. I exist in it. The years, the centuries, the cycles are absolutely nothing. It is only a moment since this tumulus was raised. In 1,000 years more, it will still be only a moment. To the soul, there is no past and no future. All is and will be ever in now. And Jefferies again reiterates, it is eternity now. It always was eternity and always will be. I am in eternity now and must there remain. This now is eternity. The continuity of now is forever. The wonder is here, not there. Now, not to be. Now, always. Eternity is now, and now is eternity. The soul itself, the spirit, is eternal. In this state of consciousness, what appears to be natural, Jefferies experiences as supernatural, more intensely real than the things around him, more real even than the physical universe itself. I felt the presence of the immense powers of the universe. I felt out into the depths of the ether. So intensely conscious of the sun, the sky, the limitless space, I felt too in the midst of eternity then, in the midst of the supernatural, among the immortal. By these I knew the supernatural to be more intensely real than the sun. I touched the supernatural, the immortal, there at that moment. Things that have been miscalled supernatural appear to me simple, more natural than nature, than earth, than sea or sun. It is beyond telling more natural that I should have a soul than not, that there should be immortality. Even the simplest of things like earth and water are beyond understanding when looked at with an elevated consciousness. Everything seems like a miracle to Jefferies. It is matter which is the supernatural and difficult of understanding. Why this clod of earth I hold in my hand? Why this water which drops sparkling from my fingers dipped in the brook? Why are they at all? When? How? What for? Matter is beyond understanding, mysterious, impenetrable. I touch it easily. Comprehend it? No. The supernatural miscalled, the natural in truth, is the real. To me, everything is supernatural. How strange that condition of mind which cannot accept anything but the earth, the sea, the tangible universe. Without the misnamed supernatural, these to me seem incomplete, unfinished. Without soul, all these are dead. As I move about in the sunshine, I feel in the midst of the supernatural, in the midst of immortal things. So full am I always of a sense of the immortality now at this moment round about me, that it would not surprise me in the least if a circumstance outside physical experience occurred. It would seem to me quite natural. Give the soul the power it conceives, and there would be nothing wonderful in it. I can see nothing astonishing in what are called miracles. Only those who are mesmerized by matter can find a difficulty in such events. The wonder rather is that they do not happen frequently. Jefferies recognizes, too, that his heightened awareness is only the beginning, and that there must be souls whose awareness or consciousness is far greater than that which he presently enjoys. When I consider that I dwell this moment in the eternal now, that has ever been and will be, that I am in the midst of immortal things this moment, that there probably are souls as infinitely superior to mine as mine to a piece of timber, what then, pray, is a miracle? Jefferies also realizes the source of this awareness to be the self, a self he does not comprehend, yet which seems to hold the key to a fully enlightened consciousness. Sometimes I have concentrated myself and driven away by continued will all sense of outward appearances, looking straight with the full power of my mind inwards on myself. I find I am there, and I do not wholly understand or know. Something is there distinct from earth and timber, from flesh and bones. Recognizing it, I feel on the margin of a life unknown, very near, almost touching it, on the verge of power which if I could grasp would give me an immense breadth of existence, an ability to execute what I now only conceive, most probably of far more than that. To see that I is to know that I am surrounded with immortal things. Richard Jefferies, The Story of My Heart. Jefferies is expressing a truth that is the foundation of all spiritual traditions, that the answers to the deepest mysteries lie within one's own self, within one's own immortal and eternal being.